Welcome, everybody. It is the Gashouse Gang with Matt Pauley. I'm Tom Ackerman. It is a great day to be alive. It is KMOX Day, 11/20. We are thrilled to be back with you again. We do this every single day on our KMOX Sports YouTube page, which is a must subscribe. And then the YouTube video gets fed to X and to, which is formerly known as Twitter, to Facebook, to all over the place. We're all over the place. It's absolutely awesome. I wonder back in 1954 when Jack Buck started broadcasting Cardinals games, or in 1945, I believe, when Harry Carey started doing Cardinals and Browns games, if they thought that was even possible, if they even dreamed of it showing up on people's phones and monitors, that they could just, can you imagine Matt Pauley, Jack Buck, and Harry Carey doing a Gashouse Gang broadcast on YouTube?
That would be pretty cool. That would be very, very cool for sure. It's fun because, just in the world that we live in with podcasts and things like these, there's so many opportunities to almost like archive the great stories from the broadcasters who have come before us, and many of them have taken the opportunity to do that. But, like the KMOX Sports Archive, we've got such amazing. That's why rain delays are so popular during Cardinal games, because of this amazing audio that we're able to go find and play back for people. It's really, really cool. And now we just get to add things like this to what we have going.
Yeah, we have so much. The best rain delay I ever heard was actually a live one when Bob Uecker went into the booth with Mike Shannon, and the two of them are just going, and Mike's got him going, telling stories. And I was actually at the stadium that day, and they're telling stories up there in the booth. And then Jack walks in. He goes, "Hey, Uke, tell him the one about," and then the three of them start going. And, just great stuff to remember. And we do have an extensive archive. In fact, I'll let people in on a little secret, is that we're about to turn 99. And so that means in a little over a year, we're going to turn 100. As you can imagine, we have some big time stuff planned. We are going to go deep into the archives. We'll pull all kinds of stuff out and celebrate. I know that there are other stations that have already turned 100, but we started on December 24th, 1925. And in a little over a year, we are going to have a celebration like you wouldn't believe, KMOX, with that great history. And Matt, I've also been posting photos that the St. Louis Media History Foundation gave me, and thanks to Frank Absher for those that I've posted. Maybe you've noticed every once in a while I'll put one up. Well, I started a little thread today just to go back, and we won't be able to have everybody, but like once an hour I'm posting a photo just so we can remember what this station has been all about for years. Matt, you and I are kind of, among many, many people who are the stewards of this group, where we are trying to carry on the legacy and hold down what they started.
Well, Tom, I think about you, and are you at a point now where you've spent more than half of your life at KMOX?
Very much so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's what I figured.
My 28th year, and I am 49.
Okay.
So, I started here when I was 22 years old.
My dad worked at KMOX in the 60s. He was the producer of Sports Open Line. He eventually was the general sales manager, operations manager. He did a little bit of everything. His final day at KMOX was the last day before the station moved to Memorial Drive. So he never worked at Memorial. He always worked at what was on whatever road that was out there. I think maybe the Salvation Army or something is in that building now. But yeah, he worked up until that point. So, I mean, just growing up, I learned stories of KMOX and stories of Bob Hyland and everything. It's fun. And I was telling this story the other day to Kevin Wheeler. I identified that I wanted to work at KMOX very early on. And I brought this up to Kevin the other day because we were talking about Oscar Taveras. I can remember doing an on-field interview in Colorado Springs when Taveras was playing AAA baseball with Memphis, and he was our star of the game. So I was doing the interview with him, and I sent you the audio thinking that maybe you would use it in the morning. I remember waking up the next morning and streaming KMOX, and I heard that you used my audio. And then even as I got to Milwaukee, I would send, like, the idea was always to try to get stuff to you and stay in your vision, so that once something opened up, maybe I would be able to walk through those doors.
And here you are.
Here I am.
I think you and I have been in contact for, I would say, at least a decade, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I was in Colorado Springs 2012-ish, I think. So yeah, I mean, it's been a while.
Yeah. And, lo and behold, a spot did open up and you were able to take it. And we're thrilled to have been able to steal you from the Brewers and get you to a real baseball town. No, I'm just kidding. Milwaukee's a great town. We all know that. How about Pat Murphy becoming manager of the year? Now, remember, they vote on that at the start of the postseason. So at the end of the regular season, they vote on that. So Milwaukee gets bounced again, but it's a great pick. I mean, I love Mike Schild, and I would have voted for Mike Schild had I had a vote because of what he did in San Diego. But the Brewers are kind of amazing. I mean, Craig Counsell goes to the Cubs, and the Brewers just keep on moving.
Yeah, what's amazing, we think about all these great Brewers teams over the last few years led by Craig Counsell. Tom, he never won a Manager of the Year award. The year Schilt won it with the Cardinals, a lot of people thought that Counsell was going to win it that year, and Schilt ended up winning it. Pretty amazing that all those years Counsell never wins one, and then Murphy wins it in his first year. I don't think you could have gone wrong with any of them. The Murphy story is obvious. The Schilt story is obvious. And then, I mean, when you look at what Mendoza did with the Mets for where that team was at and where that team finished, not even, again, playoff run not even included, that was an incredible story there too. So there were a lot of really good choices to choose from, I think, on each side, but certainly on the National League side.
I agree. Mendoza's a really good manager. I mean, they did a really nice job there. Ollie Marmol got one third place vote. I did see some commentary on Twitter where Cardinals fans were wondering where that vote came from and what that voter was doing and why. Come on, man. Lay off Ollie a little bit. Look, let me just say this, and I know you have some things to talk about here too, but Ollie Marmol is not at fault here for the team not making the postseason. I think it's been made pretty clear what we all think about this. The Cardinals did not have, they patched and patched and patched, and they did not have a team. It's not Ollie Marmol's fault that Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado didn't hit. In fact, the Cardinals probably finish 10, 15 games below 500 if Ollie doesn't put his magic touch on that bullpen. I think he handled that very, very well, and I think he is going to be a very good manager in his career. He's young. Keep in mind that Tony La Russa, when he started his career, had a losing record after some early success and then got fired, actually, by the White Sox. And he and Ollie have become pretty close. And I think that, he's taught Ollie a little bit of how to deal with all of this criticism. Ollie's going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think very highly of Oliver Marmol. We all know he's not the most popular manager in the history of the Cardinals. If you look just at run differential, this team should have been a team that won 69, 70 games, and they end up, 4 games over 500, 83 wins. So I think that's a reflection on him. I did have to laugh a little bit, though, Tom, because Cardinals fans and Keith Law do not exactly see eye to eye on a lot of things. Keith is an anti-Yachty to the Hall of Fame guy. A lot of people blame Keith. I can't remember off the top of my head. It was either Wainwright or Carpenter. A lot of people blame Keith Law and his voting one year for the Cy Young on one of those guys not winning the Cy Young one year. So there's definitely some dislike from Cardinals fans towards Keith Law. So the fact that he was the guy who voted Ollie third, I did chuckle a little bit when I saw that.
Yeah, I know. And I thought it was kind of funny too. So there's your answer. And there's also a look at manager of the year. And in the American League, I think that was an obvious choice. Vote was terrific. And, he's only 40 years old. Did you know that? I mean, he's young. He's going to have that's what he's doing with that team. Matt, they might have been the best team in the American League. I know they did not win the pennant, but I thought from start to finish, they were fantastic. And he did a wonderful job. So the future's bright for him. And, we'll see where it all turns out. You got Cy Young today and you got MVP tomorrow.
I got to know Steven just a little bit. He spent some time with the Brewers when I was covering them, and he got injured. And Bally Sports Wisconsin brought him up to do some TV stuff when he was injured, some studio stuff. And he was so good, Tom. He was incredible. And they wanted him to do it for the rest of the year. And some people in the clubhouse actually kind of whispered to him and said, hey, you're still an active player. If you go do this TV thing, you're going to get into free agency and people might start viewing you as a former player. So he stopped doing the TV stuff and went back to just being part of the team as an injured guy. But he could do so many things in baseball. He was as good on TV as anybody's out there. Now we see him as an incredible manager. If anybody doesn't know, go do a YouTube search for Stephen Vogt, basketball official. He does a little skit where he imitates basketball officials, and it is hilarious. This guy really checks a lot of boxes.
That's good. Off topic. Do you know who was really good last night? Travis Ford was the TV analyst on SEC Network for the Kentucky Lipscomb game. First time I've ever seen him do it. Maybe the first time he's ever done it. The guy's been a coach since he was in his 20s. Travis was good. He was really good. I mean, I don't know if he wants to get back into coaching or not, but he'd be good at that.
I enjoyed listening to him talk about basketball. We would have the coaches shows on Monday nights, and him and Rammer. Sometimes you were filling in on that show, Tom. When he would just not really so much talking about the team, but when he would just start talking about basketball, I thought he was really good. So that doesn't surprise me that he was very good on the TV broadcast. I didn't catch that.
It's the Gashouse Gang with Matt Pauley. I'm Tom Ackerman. We are celebrating KMOX Day 11/20. So many of these great personalities through the years, and I know we reminisce. If you want to, you can pop it into the comments wherever you're watching, YouTube, Facebook, X, your memories of some of the greats on KMOX. And the Cardinals, of course, are our big property. We have a lot of them. We've got St. Louis University. We have St. Louis City SC, everything but the play-by-play, which is down the hall, and our station down the hall, Y98. We also carry the Kansas City Chiefs. And for a brief moment, we carried the Battlehawks. And who knows what's to come there? I don't know. But we did Battlehawks on the radio as well. So we had a good year. But we spent a lot of time talking Cardinals here on the Gashouse Gang. And I want to get back into it. Anytime there's Cardinals news, we jump all over it, and then we kind of break it down. And yesterday, Kevin Wheeler and I predicted here on the Gashouse Gang who the 4 players protected were going to be, and we just about nailed it. Matt, I think the obvious ones were Tink Hence and Tekoa Roby. Mm-hmm. Then we guessed on Matt Swanson, Koperniak, thank you, and Bedell.
Ian Bedell.
We thought maybe Bedell would be, but as it turns out, it was Koperniak and Swanson along with the starters, Hence and Roby, with Rom getting the outright to reduce that down back to 39. Just your thoughts on all of those moves yesterday.
The two obvious ones were the 2 pitchers, and I think those guys are both going to get to the big leagues at some point this year. Maybe more. I feel more confidently saying that about Hence than Roby, but I feel like there's a good chance we see Roby this upcoming season as well. Swanson, this is going to be a year where you're going to need guys at AAA to be relief pitchers who can cut. With in all likelihood, Andrew Kittredge not coming back, with a very good chance that Ryan Helsley is going to get traded, there are going to be many opportunities when it comes to relief pitchers, and you want to have guys at Memphis who you feel comfortable calling up, just like they did this year with a Leahy and a Roycroft and a Ludus, guys like that. I think the Koperniak thing is the most interesting one, Tom, because this is somebody who was a D3 guy from Great Britain, never really was considered much of a prospect, and all he did was turned himself into a really, really good player, and he was one of the top hitters in all of AAA this past season. He's a great story, and this organization has not always been great at having position players ready at Memphis to step into roles when needed. I think about Kirakuto and how much time he got at shortstop 2 seasons ago. Like, you needed to have a better guy at AAA who could play shortstop, and then that didn't happen. So we know that Lars Nootbaar has injury issues. We know that there's some question marks still around Jordan Walker. You got to have somebody there who, if you need to have somebody in a corner outfield spot for a few weeks that won't embarrass himself, I think Koperniak, fits that category.
Yeah, I liked what I saw from Koperniak in spring training. Guy hits the ball hard and can be a versatile player in the outfield. I think he's a very nice player. The Cardinals do have some choices in the outfield. I mean, I wanted to get into that just a little bit if we can. We kind of bounce around roster a little bit, but I want to go back to the outfield. Matt, in a perfect world, I'm going to put you on the spot here. The way it stands right now, and they may go out and sign a free agent, or perhaps they swing a trade and add somebody, but do you like their outfield situation, and what do you do? Who are your starters on opening day if you're going with the outfield that the Cardinals have right now?
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, Victor Scott wins the center field job. That's the big question mark. So can he do enough? Because he's a young, exciting player who can do so many things, who does some things that they don't have a lot of on the roster. So that's the big question. The corner outfield spots aren't a question at all to me. It's Nootbaar in left and Walker in right. That does present the question, what do you do with Alec Burleson? Because now all of a sudden with Wilson Contreras at first base, does Burleson almost become the full-time DH? And by the way, I'm not against that. When you think about, since the DH has come to the National League, Tom, when the Cardinals got the most production from the DH, it was when Albert Pujols was basically the full-time DH for the club. I know teams like to use the DH as a way to get guys off their feet, but still keep them in the lineup and everything. But I'm actually a big believer that just giving somebody the DH job, or maybe they start there 4 or 5 times a week. If Burley is the DH 4 or 5 times a week, and then he gets an occasional start at first and an occasional start in the outfield, I think that's a really good scenario. But that does limit you in terms of being able to use the DH to give other players at bats.
How do you see Ciani then? So Ciani,
fourth outfielder. If Scott makes the team, I like Ciani. I think he's obviously, what he does defensively is pretty spectacular. If he's somebody that you're up by a run or two in the 8th and 9th innings, he's coming in to play right field for Walker. He might win the starting center fielder's job out of spring training. If he does, good on him. But I think in a perfect world, Victor Scott wins that job.
And then I'll ask you something that I asked Kevin Wheeler yesterday. Where are the power sources going to come from? Paul Goldschmidt is presumably leaving this team. He's a free agent and he isn't coming back. He hasn't signed anywhere yet. My worry is that he's going to go to the Astros and hit 40 home runs because he led the team in home runs last year. I mean, of all the things that happened and all the frustration with Paul Goldschmidt, the guy leads the team in home runs with 22. That's not a lot. Jack Clark hit 22 for the Cardinals in 1985, back when Whitey Herzog used to joke that they struggled to pass Roger Maris as a team.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be happening in 2024. I mean, you should be hitting bombs. So if they lose Goldschmidt, heck, if they lose Arenado, and he didn't do all that great either from a power standpoint, where are the power sources on this team?
Well, the first guy, Wilson Contreras, is he's going to be at first base. He's the first guy I mentioned. If, and this is a big if Nolan Gorman can take that step forward. And there was an interesting piece that was written by John Denton at MLB.com this past week that talked about Brent Brown and him already really connecting with Nolan Gorman and them going over some things. Gorman is the other guy. So for me, Contreras and Gorman are your two middle of the order power hitter type guys if they can step through. And then you've got to gaggle, does Jordan Walker add some power to his game? We know how hard he hits the ball. He's just got to get more loft on it. He's got the ability to hit a home run. I even think somebody like Mason Wynn, I think his power, he's never going to be a 30 home run guy, but can Mason Wynn get to a point where he's a 20, 25 home run guy? Probably not this upcoming season, but I don't think that is, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. But I think the two guys who can be legit home run hitters for this team are Contreras and Gorman.
I'm with you on Wynn for sure. I think that as he starts to establish himself as a hitter and, decides that, well, he's already made the decision that he knows how to play through things and knows how to manage his body. I think as his pitch selection continues to improve, and he hits the ball hard, hits it into gaps, I'm with you. He's got good power. The other one is Lars Nootbaar. I think that Nootbaar, when he's healthy, if he can just get himself to play more games, I think he has some power potential for sure. There was a question up there just a second ago. Drew, you can pop that back up there about Ryan Helsley. Now, this is a topic, too, that we tackled on Monday, but I want to come back to it a little bit. When it comes to Helsley, it's not a foregone conclusion that they're going to trade him. They need to get something for him, and I think they want to be knocked over with a deal. They know that he's going to draw the biggest haul. What do you see there for Helsley?
Yeah, I think it's I think they're looking for close to big league ready prospects. If you just get your socks blown off by one of these top level guys that's playing single A baseball, you listen to it. But I think about the level where Adam Wainwright was at when the Cardinals went and got him, sort of that. Somebody who is likely to be at AAA this upcoming season, maybe at the high end of AA, but somebody who's going to be able to impact the big league roster within the next season and a half.
Yeah, that's a good one right there. I agree with you. I do. Do you think that the Cardinals will go out and try to find some experience power, because we're putting a lot of ifs on Walker, Gorman, if Nootbaar gets healthy? I think Wynn is and Burleson are two guys that I think you can count on. And, obviously there's a few others in there that can rip it. Do you think they would go out and maybe try to grab an established bat?
That's a good question, Tom, because you don't want to do it at the expense of these younger players getting opportunities. You don't want to go bring in a guy who's been around forever and that costs Thomas Saggese at bats. But at the same time, that Matt Carpenter role for this past season, is there a guy out there who is going to be out there 2 weeks before spring training starts and fits the role in kind of a mentorship type role for the Cardinals, who also brings solid power with him? If that's out there, I kind of have the same conversation when we talk about relief pitching. If Andrew Kittredge is available and we're 2 weeks out from pitchers and catchers reporting, then you go re-engage with them, because there's going to be relief pitchers of that stature, I think, that are going to be available very close to spring training. So I don't think it's a priority right now. I think the priority remains do what you need to do to give younger players the most opportunity, because you got to find out who they are. At the end of the day, the most important thing that can happen this year for the Cardinals is there are certain players that they need to know who they are and what they're going to be able to turn into. And you do that by giving them playing time. And I would not want to see them put that on the back burner because they go sign a veteran guy.
Good point. No question about it. And, the last point I'll make on this, and then we'll get into some other topics, is I think there needs to be a mix here of power and contact. And I believe that when we start to get through spring training and we get into the beginning of the year, Brendan Donovan for sure has that ability. That's a name that I kind of left out there. But I think that Saggese is going to emerge here. I now he's got to be a little tired because he's just, wrapping up the fall league and all that stuff in Arizona. But Saggese, to me, has got a chance to be a very special player here. I don't want to put too much on the young man, but everything he's shown me, I've not seen one step backwards. I mean, I think he's got the great bat-to-ball skills. I think he's got some power, contact. I don't see any downside with him.
And I think it was really important that he got some time. We saw how impactful that can be with Mason Wynn. Wynn did not look very good offensively during the 2023 season in that final month. And then he comes into spring training that next year, and we get to the regular season, and he just absolutely takes off. So they pushed Saggese a little bit. I did think the fall league placement was a little bit interesting. You don't see a lot of guys who played in the big leagues playing in the Arizona Fall League, but he is a big part of what this team wants to do moving forward. And if they do move Nolan Arenado, which I think most of us think is a likely scenario, we talk so much about Nolan Gorman getting the chance there, and he is going to get that first chance because of how he profiles as a middle-of-the-order run producer. But if Nolan Gorman walks into the season or walks into spring training as a 180 hitter who's striking out 2 times a game, they're going to have to find something else. And Brendan Donovan is probably best suited to be able to bounce around a little bit. I don't think you want him to be your everyday third baseman. If Thomas Saggese runs with the job, then good on him. And I do think there's going to be legit competition for some of these spots in spring training.
It's the Gashouse Gang on KMOX and KMOX.com with Matt Pauley. I'm Tom Ackerman. It's great to be along with you all. Jeff Passan just breaking a little bit of news, actually kind of adding on to what was just mentioned on Twitter, is that Eli Morgan, the reliever from Cleveland, has been acquired by the Cubs in a trade with the Guardians, and Patrick Wisdom has just been designated for assignment. Interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that Wisdom would be DFA'd on November 20th.
Yeah, the former Cardinal, Patrick Wisdom. Now, his numbers were way down, but he's always, the last few years at least, he's had a low batting average, but with some pop. In 21, he hit 28 home runs. In 22, he hit 25. In 23, he hit 23 home runs. Last year, he hit only 8 home runs to go along with 23 RBIs, and he batted 171. And his averages in those previous years going backwards, 205, 207, 231. I'm not advocating for Patrick Wisdom to be picked up by the Cardinals, but I just find it interesting. I find it interesting what the Cubs are going to do. They're the one team in the division that I think could stir it up, make some noise, and try to capture this thing.
Look, Craig Counsell in a press conference at the end of the season, Tom, basically said, we need to make moves this offseason to put ourselves in position to be a 90-plus win team. That when your manager is going out and saying that, I don't think that's just coming off an island. I don't think he's trying to send a message. I think that is a byproduct of communication that has already taken place. So yeah, of the 4 other teams in the division, with all due respect to the Brewers, who every year we discount and then they do what the Brewers do, the Cubs absolutely are the team that scares me the most in the NL Central, because you know what, if you're a Cubs fan, like we always hear about Cardinals fans being upset at the DeWitts and the amount of money they spend. And could the DeWitts spend more? Sure. But I think they spend, I've never had an issue with the amount that the Cardinals spend on payroll. I think they spend a very respectable amount on payroll. If you're a Cubs fan, the Cubs have every opportunity to be the Yankees, to be the Mets, to be the Dodgers in terms of payroll, top 3 market in the country, lots of revenue streams, sold out ballpark every day, huge TV deal. Now you run your own TV network. Like they absolutely should be in the behemoth category of Major League payroll, and they just don't do it.
No, true. Eli Morgan, by the way, 3-0 with a 1.93 ERA. He made 32 appearances last year. So the 28-year-old Morgan now joining the Chicago Cubs. So the Cardinals presumably will have to deal with him, a right-handed reliever who is a former starter. He started for the Guardians back in 2021, made 18 starts for them, went 5-7 with a 5.34 ERA. They decided to turn him into a reliever, and little by little that has come to fruition. So he becomes a Cub. But elsewhere in the division, the Brewers are going to be a player. I mean, they always seem to, no matter what they do. They've got the system, I think, that the Cardinals want, where you just keep bringing names in and adding, and that's what Chaim Bloom is going to try to build. I'm curious about the Pittsburgh Pirates. They've got a franchise player in Paul Skeens, but, man, they seem to be bottom feeders always in this division. And I want to get your thoughts on the Pirates, but also the Cincinnati Reds, because the Reds – they fooled me last year. I thought they were going to be a division contender. They fell back. David Bell couldn't keep his job. He actually got fired right before the end of the year. They didn't even let him finish right about a week to go. And then Terry Francona takes over. Now, Francona interviewed for the Cardinals job after Tony La Russa retired in 2011, a job that Mike Matheny ultimately picked up. Francona is in the NL Central, healthy enough to give it another go. What do you think about the Reds and Pirates?
Yeah, so the Reds have all the talent in the world. The reason you thought they were going to be a division contender, and the reason a lot of people thought that last year, was because of their great young talent. And we saw that, they stuck around in the divisional race in 22. So it looked like they could take a step forward. But last offseason, they made a couple smaller moves, but they didn't try that hard to make themselves better. They were just trying to rely on these young guys that they had, and that ended up biting them, especially when they started dealing with some injuries. Francona going in there is interesting. I wonder what kind of assurances, Tom, Francona has received from the organization, because I don't think Francona is coming out of retirement to go to a place that he doesn't feel like he's got a chance to win. And in Cincinnati, for you to have a chance to win, the organization's going to have to do something. So maybe that's a under the radar situation to look at, or maybe he just really wanted to be back managing, and it was geographically close to a place that he was comfortable with. Pittsburgh, just I like so many players on that team, young, exciting, fun players. For whatever reason, though, they just can't put it all together. They're under the category as well of teams that don't do enough in the offseason to make themselves better.
Yeah, kind of a shame. I mean, Pittsburgh at one point was such a great baseball town. I know we're dating ourselves here, but you're going back to the 70s, 80s, and really some of the 90s. They had some fun teams. They challenged the Braves, and darn near got themselves in the World Series, and Jimmy Leland was managing them. Great town, beautiful ballpark and view. When they went to the playoffs in 2013, the place was an absolute madhouse as the Cardinals were going up against them, and somehow survived it, got through it. Michael Wacha and company ended up winning the pennant and going on to the World Series, but that Pirates crowd was ridiculous. I always think about that and how much fun that was and how much fun it would be. Verlis said, thanks for answering my question. You bet, anytime. Mighty Mike 84 has a question off of YouTube. What do we think will take the Nolan deal? Will they have to eat half the contract and would it be the Dodgers, Yankees, Mets who could do it? He thinks it would be Dodgers, Yankees, Mets who could do it. I think that's partially right. I mean, I think you're looking at which teams would handle a sizable chunk of that money if the Cardinals are going to deal Arenado. By the way, that is not a foregone conclusion either. I mean, I think so. I think he probably gets dealt, but you're going to have to get something to go your way, unlike what the Rockies ended up giving the Cardinals $50 million. I still am scratching my head on that.
It's really complicated too, Tom, because in addition to the fact that both the Cardinals and Rockies are paying him this upcoming season, he's got deferred money on that deal all the way through his like age 50 year. And some of that deferred money, it's $2 million a year to a certain point, and then it goes to $3 million. And it's all connected. Though that deferred money is directly connected to salaries in certain seasons. So if you are trading away his 2025 salary, well, part of that is supposed to be given out to him later on. So this is one where if the Cardinals trade Arenado, I just don't think they get a whole lot back for him. I think they try to get salary relief more than anything.
The Gashouse Gang on KMOX, KMOX.com, sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Bernie Miklasz bringing in a great sponsor, and we're thrilled about it. We will hear from Bernie tomorrow. He's going to be with Kevin Wheeler on the Gashouse Gang, and then Matt Pauley, you will have him on Friday. My name is Tom Ackerman, and let's finish our show talking about Indiana football. No, I'm just kidding. We'll talk. That's for another day. I'm so fired up for Saturday, I can't contain myself. I did catch. You know who else called a good game yesterday? John Buccigross was good, I thought, on ESPN Plus yesterday. And I love John Kelly and Chris Kerber for that matter. But I thought Butch was good. He called a really nice game. Unfortunately, the Blues didn't win it. They lost it 4-2 to the Minnesota Wild. In that matchup, though, the Blues do get Robert Thomas back. After just 4 weeks, unbelievably, he's out there after a fractured ankle. So he has the Wilson Contreras strength, I guess. He's eating the same Wheaties as Wilson. They're able to come back from broken bones and perform. That is at least a good sign. But the Blues are in a tailspin here. They've lost 6 of 7.
Yeah, and it's the third period that continues to beat them. They give up 3 third-period goals yesterday against Minnesota. Now, one of those was an empty netter, to be fair. It was a 1-goal game in the final 2-3 minutes before they gave up the empty netter, so it was a 3-2 game. But, yeah, that's I don't know, like – the frustrating thing is, Tom, like we've watched sports. People who are listening and watching to us watch sports. We know the cyclical nature and thing A happens, so you know that thing B is going to happen. Like it's very predictable in many ways. And the Blues just aren't that. They get Robert Thomas back. It is an incredible story. Dude fractures his ankle. He could be out upwards of 2 months. He wasn't even supposed to be reevaluated until like the 6-week marker. And here he is coming back at just under 1 month. It is incredible. And they don't harness that and turn it into something special on his first night back. And I try not to make too much of any single game. You do that, you can really start going down some not so great paths. But when you do take a step back and look at who this team is and look at how often they are losing games and the fashion in which they are losing some of these games, it is a startling thing. And luckily for them, they're not in a hole. They're 8-11-1. They're like 4 or 5 points out of a playoff spot. Like the record isn't something to be worried about right now. What is to be worried about is the way these games are being played.
The Gashouse Gang, as we sit here and talk hockey with Matt Pauley, I can't help but notice that Jim Montgomery got let go by the Boston Bruins. Now, last year, this past season, when the Bruins finished so strong, and then got bounced early, there was a lot of buzz that if Montgomery gets fired, the Blues should jump all over him. With all respect to Drew Bannister, they should hire Montgomery. I mean, the guy's been a proven winner. The Blues won at the highest level. Montgomery got fired by the Boston Bruins, and now you start to hear all the Blues fans buzzing about Montgomery. Bring him back. Do you think that is possible?
I don't know. It's not just Blues fans. There was I read an article in The Athletic that listed the top 4 spots for Montgomery to land. And the first spot that they mentioned was St. Louis. He has a home in St. Louis. He married a woman who is from St. Louis. I mean, he was an assistant for Craig Berube. He has a very good relationship with a lot of Blues players. From what we understand, he has a good relationship with Doug Armstrong. Like, there's a lot of things that are connected. I'm not exactly the call for a coach to be fired kind of guy. That's not really in my repertoire. We can look, and especially this early on in a tenure, if Drew Bannister wakes up tomorrow morning and finds out he doesn't have a job anymore because the Blues want to go bring in Montgomery, I don't think that's fair to Bannister. He deserves an opportunity to do the job that he was hired to do. But if at some point in time, Doug Armstrong looks at what's going on and says, you know what, this decision that I made in this offseason to keep Drew Bannister, it was not the right decision. And now all of a sudden this guy is out there. And also Claude Julien's on the bench too. He's another like legit dude who's right there, who's done a lot in the NHL. But it's not just fans, Tom. That's one of the weird things about this. This is not just fans clamoring for Montgomery to come back. There are some, plugged in hockey people who are saying that there could be something where he could end up in St. Louis.
Yeah, I just don't know. And I love the guy. And obviously I think the Blues will do the right thing here and at least, kick the tires on it. But I don't know if it's the best fit for Montgomery. Like, I feel like Montgomery, is going to want to go win right away. And I don't think the Blues are going to win right away. But most of his opportunities are probably going to be to try to help a team that's struggling. He's from Montreal, so maybe the Canadiens, maybe that makes the most sense. I have no idea. There's some big franchises out there mentioned in The Athletic, by the way. I was reading that earlier. Jeremy Rutherford directed everybody to the story, New York Times Athletic collaboration there, that, Montreal, Pittsburgh is off to a rough start. Detroit has a similar record to the Blues. But I feel like the Blues are a little bit further. They don't look like a team that's going to go win the cup this year. Could be wrong. Maybe they, find some magic and make the playoffs. But I don't know. I'd love to have them, but I'm just trying to be realistic here. That's for sure. What's coming up on Sports Open Line for you tonight on this 11:20?
6 to 8, we've got a few things that we're going to have on. The SLU men's soccer team is into the NCAA tournament. Their coach is going to join us. Bernie's with us tonight at 6:20. We'll go through the same Blues conversation, go through, we'll know who the Cy Young Award winners are as we get on the air. So we'll go through that as well. So hopefully folks can be tuned in.
And then tomorrow we have Thursday night football. Friday we have a late SLU game, a 9:30 tip with a 9:15 pregame. That's like in March, the NCAA tournament first round when they throw those 10 o'clock tips at us.
It is. That's all. You get some weird game times when you get around Thanksgiving time.
I think the Billikens are pretty good, actually. I'd be listening to Matt Pauley's Sports Open Line tonight because I think by then you might have an update as to what Robbie Avila's status is. If he practices today, I think there would be some temptation to play him Friday against Wichita State. The last I heard is that he was getting around on that ankle but not practicing just yet. I don't know if they'd really rush it, though. Wichita State's awfully good, and the Billikens actually played pretty well against Loyola Marymount. They just need to close out games a little bit better. But that's bears watching, I think. Robbie Avila, I'm telling you, once people start to get more into college basketball, they're going to realize SLU's got a team. They got a nice-looking team. And so, we'll see where that all heads. Big game tonight, by the way, Illinois and Alabama.
Huge game
in Birmingham that we'll be keeping an eye on. All right, pal. Well, it's been fun chatting with you. I love the Gashouse gang. We get a chance to talk to everybody. You have a great rest of your day and enjoy this evening.
You too. Happy KMOX Day.
Happy KMOX Day. You can follow us at KMOX Sports YouTube page. You should subscribe to us. While you're there, subscribe to Bernie Miklas's The Bernie Show. Bernie Miklas has a YouTube page that's about 7,000 subscribers already. We're trying to catch them. Thanks for joining us. This is the Gashouse Gang, sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling.